everyone, and welcome back to another Tar Talks episode. This Tar Talks episode is something which I can tell you I personally went up to the script team and forced them to write the script for because of how interesting it is.
So that means it's boring.
It is not boring at all. It's about it's about one of my favorite scientists to ever exist.
Boring.
Erwin Schrödinger is anything but boring, guys.
Okay.
This episode is about Erwin Schrödinger. So, have you ever heard of Schrödinger's cat? Okay, so Reena, if you think you heard of Schrödinger's cat, what is it?
So it's basically when you take a cat and you keep it in a box and you close the box. So now you can't see through the box. And you don't know if the cat is alive or it's dead. Or if it's alive. But then you don't know until you don't open the box.
You know what do I find to be so funny in all of this? That Reena managed to miss the most important point of Schrödinger's cat. Okay, what Schrödinger's cat basically is, which I need to explain to a physics student right now, as a biochemistry student,
How is physics related to Erwin Schrödinger's cat?
it's literally
Cat and Erwin
quantum physics.
Schrödinger's cat.
Yes.
I've not learned quantum
Oh
physics.
my god, okay, let me explain. Okay, that just makes this entire topic so much more interesting. Okay, imagine a box, Reena. This cat is placed in a box. Now, this box has a mechanism in it which might kill the cat. But it's also important to remember how this mechanism might not kill the cat. It's basically a reaction which, if triggered, is going to kill the cat. But again, as I mentioned, you do not know whether this reaction is going to get triggered or not get triggered. Now, this cat is placed inside this box with this mechanism that might or might not kill it, and you have not looked into this box yet. So, how do you know right now whether the cat is alive or not?
I don't.
You don't. Which means that unless you open the box, you can assume both things. The cat is alive and the cat is not alive, right?
If I open it after 24 hours, I'm pretty sure the cat will be dead.
But you don't know that. The cat can still be alive. How would the cat be dead? Cats do not die of hunger by not eating for 24 hours, Reynolds.
Okay, 48 or 50. Oh, how many? 1 week.
Okay, but the point is, if we are looking at a very small observational period, if we're looking at 1 hour or 2 hours, you at no point know for sure whether the cat is dead or not. Which means that unless you open the box, you do not know at any point whether the cat is dead or not.
So what did I say?
Meaning that the particles or the cat at the very same time is capable of existing in both the dead and in a live state.
But then I might know a cat does the meow.
Guys,
You think of that, right?
the reason Erwin Schrödinger was actually successful and was actually able to propose genuine points.
He was not in the room with me.
He did not have enough to make that comment.
Mm.
But the point is, that is what most people.
So what did I say? You can't know if it's alive or dead.
Yeah.
What point did I miss? You tell me.
I'll tell you what point.
Tell.
Now the point you missed is at the very same time, unless you observe what's happening to the cat is both alive and dead at the same time, which can entirely explain quantum particles. Which, genuinely explains the idea in quantum physics that tiny subatomic particles can be in two states at the exact same time until they're being observed by an observer. Which is what quantum physics is about. So Schrödinger's cat proposes that theory. It is a thought experiment. It's not an experiment that you've actually done or, because you cannot do so.
So what are we really talking about in this episode? Is it Schrödinger's cat or something else?
I can tell you, we're not talking about Schrödinger's cat this episode. I personally, I think Schrödinger is a great, great physicist. But one of the main reasons why I genuinely admire Schrödinger's work is because of his contributions to the field of biophysics and his, own bases and theories on explaining what life is and how does life originate. We are essentially, with all of that, talking about a very, very good book of his, which I love reading, written for the layman, What is Life?
So now, the main question the books ask are, what are the physical basis of heredity? How does life maintain order when everything in physics seems to move toward disorder, which is entropy? And can we describe the phenomena of life in terms of the law of physics?
Exactly. And as someone who's read this book and as someone who absolutely loves this book, I have a couple of comments to make on that. Dina, do you know what entropy is?
Yes,
Oh,
I've learned it.
Could you tell our audience what entropy is?
It's basically the disorderness which a particle or a compound has.
Exactly. So it is this entire constant movement or shift towards something disorder or chaos, like random chaos in the environment. Like And when, we make the statement that everything in physics seems to move towards disorder, it is very clearly explained by the second law of thermodynamics. What this essentially establishes is the fact that if I were to take a very hot cup of coffee right now and place that cup of coffee in this room, it will cool down to a regular temperature, right? And after doing that, once it's cooled down to regular temperature, at the very same time, it will also heat up later on and like turn into vapor. So, what I'm trying to basically explain is that every single particle in this universe seems to be moving towards this state of disorder, or this state of trying to spread its own particle wider and wider into the universe, right? And we can see this through the most natural like processes in the world. You can see this through cooling and heating, for example. We can see this through something as natural as decomposition.
So now, have you ever heard about gene as a code?
Exactly. Gene in Schrodinger's work is so important because, when Schrodinger was working on this, there was nothing like DNA per se introduced, but he was talking about genes or genetics as a code script that basically determines an organism's development and traits. And he imagined genes to be this aperiodic crystal, something which is solid and stable, but not repeating in a simple pattern. So, DNA, as you know, had not been discovered yet, but his idea on what's truly present in the human body matches the DNA so close.
What about life and entropy?
So, now this is where, we can tie bio and physics together. We know that everything in physics seems to be moving towards a natural state of entropy. Then why are we as humans not turning into like vapor right now? Have you ever thought about that?
Not
Well,
really.
trust me when I say it is so interesting.
You know, our blood will start boiling at 60 degrees Celsius.
But how is it that our body's internal temperature never reaches there, even if we're like literally in a 100-degree Fahrenheit place?
Cause how do you say it? In bio, you have sweat glands. Now the sweat glands release sweat.
You are so close. What is this entire process known as? You know this enough. You wrote your O levels in this.
O levels.
Your IGCSE exams.
I forgot.
Wow. Homeostasis, guys.
Oh yeah.
And what is homeo?
Fun.
And okay. And what bigger processes homeostasis come under?
What do you mean?
Metabolism.
Okay. Didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Okay. All bodily functions actually do end up falling under metabolism. And where and what is the basis of metabolism in the
Energy.
human body?
I think
Energy.
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria. Good job. You deserve a high five. The mitochondria is single-handedly responsible for like the body's metabolism, and there are so many functions, and like there are so many ways it does so. One is, as you have mentioned, by facilitating energy, by ensuring ATP production. But we need to understand that the functioning of the mitochondria within itself is impossible without a genetic code. To the extent where the mitochondria, other than the entire cellular DNA, has its own DNA,
Okay.
which is separate from your cellular DNA, meaning that the aperiodic crystal, which Erwin Schrödinger kept on talking about, is single-handedly at the basis of all cellular metabolism. Cellular metabolism, which later can translate to such a big action of preventing living organisms from being the only thing that can defy entropy in the entire world. And that is so fascinating to think about because you have the biggest planets, you have actual stars, and you have like asteroids going around the entire universe, confiding to like the laws of entropy, but you don't have living organisms doing so. It's genuinely like a superpower, and DNA is in the center of all of this.
So now you being interested in biology, how does quantum physics and stability in biology relate to each other?
So, how this relates is basically Erwin Schrödinger points out that quantum mechanics is now essentially very necessary to be able to explain the stability of molecules like genes and proteins, because we know these are like extremely stable in the human body. They like live with homeostasis. They're not able to, they do not comply to the second law of thermodynamics. They're very stable, and classical physics would predict that these molecules are falling apart, that these molecules should also be spreading their particles wider and wider into the environment. But why? But quantum physics over here being able to explain why atoms and bonds are so stable is what helps us understand the basis of life. Why organic compounds are actually able to stay in your body the way they do. It is because of quantum physics talking about atoms. So, what Erwin Schrödinger basically does in his book is he distinguishes order from disorder, okay, where randomness averages out to stability, like in gases, and order from order, like DNA replication. So, when I say order to disorder, we're talking about the flow where something which appears to be in a state of order moves to a state of disorder. We see this in state change when we're looking at like the most basic chemistry. When we're looking at like states changing, that is order to randomness. And when we're looking from order to order, when one order generates another order, we can talk about DNA replication. Can you think about DNA replication as a concept? Can you let them know what happens in that?
DNA replication. I'm not a bio student.
This is 10th grade bio, Arinav. What happens in DNA replication is
Oh yeah, so a gene. It's not DNA properly, but it's a gene replication.
okay.
So
Getting there, guys.
the same bases are copied by the mRNA, which are gone into the ribosome, and then no, the tRNA goes through the ribosome, and then that's how a gene is produced, a copy of the gene.
Guys, it's okay. We will ignore the fact that Srinav confused DNA replication with transcription and translation.
Yeah, transcription and translation. Yes.
Okay, in DNA replication, you have basically one set of DNA or, one cell giving rise to more cells, right? This is the cell theory.
Oh,
when we
meiosis,
found-
mitosis.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that is when we can see that one orderly organism, living organism, is giving rise to another, meaning order to order. And this, what Schrodinger explores through his entire book, What is Life, is basically how living systems maintain this dynamic disorder within themselves. And when he's talking about genes and DNA, he's not just talking about it in terms of like materials present over there, but he's talking about it in terms of, as Enough mentioned, with the help of transcription and translation being the instructions and mechanism for the entirety of life, proving that life happening in living organisms is not just a random chance. It is years of evolution. It is years of actually like us going from like simple organisms to complex organisms. Which is why I think Erwin Schrödinger single-handedly as a scientist describes so much which so many biophysics students around the world are so interested in. So that was Erwin Schrödinger on Tahar Talks, and thank you so much for joining us today.